Storify will do. So it does like all of that like regular content.
Somebody used it and said that there were some issues with it, but I can't remember
what were the issues. Because I just did the Storify. I like converted like 60.
And we're live.
We're not live. Wait, it's a minute. We're still warming up.
We're live. It says live right there in the box.
It's for SPSM.
What's for SPSM?
So it's like foreplay plus SPSM equals for SPSM.
Forever.
Is that the tattoo we're gonna get?
Yes.
And we're live.
You first.
Hey everybody, it's 9 o'clock. We've got some updating to do. We had a lot of information, or excuse me, a lot of things that we have been sifting through. Like not everything is decided, but you're going to be hearing about how we're going to move into hashtag AAS18 here in how many weeks is it? Is it just 4 weeks away? 4 weeks away.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're figuring some shizzle out. I'm at Doc Foreman, and you've wandered into the suicide prevention social media chat, where we're going to be talking about a little bit of the history of conference tweeting, which we've talked about before. And I like to tell a nice like Mike Sevilla story, because I think that's like when I got to first hang out with him in person. Tony was there, super cool. And also like how we're going to figure out the logistics of live streaming versus live tweeting, because I don't know. I don't think that live tweeting is the social media of the future. Just saying. I just don't think so. So what does that mean, right? So everyone, I'm at Doc Foreman, and everyone also say hello to Mr. Tony Wood. Tony, say hi to the people.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tony Wood.
Oh,
I'm the chair of the board of the American Association of Suicidology, and while April adjusts her levels, I will tell you about the upcoming conference. It's just 4 weeks away. If you haven't registered, register today. It's in Washington, D.C. There's a wonderful overflow hotel. I'm not sure which one, but it is close to the venue, within walking distance, I've been assured. Suicidology.org. Register today. Okay, you've heard the plug. Otherwise, I'm also the CEO of Quantify, a software company. You'll love it. Quantify.com. And donate your data at ourdatahelps.org. April Foreman.
I was on mute. Bart Andrews.
Hey, everybody. Dr. Bart Andrews. You can find me on Twitter at Bart Andrews. I hang out there occasionally. I am the Vice President of Telehealth Home and Community Services at a groovy little crisis agency in St. Louis, Missouri called Behavioral Health Response. I am delighted to serve on the American Association of Suicidology Executive Committee with Tony Wood and April Foreman and a bunch of other amazing folks that are a part of that group. Super excited about the conference, which is in DC. A lot of folks don't know this, but I'm telling you now, you're hearing it from me. Right after the AAS conference, AAS 18 is NatCon 18. We've got back-to-back conference goodness. I'll also publicly announce I am one of the Twitter ambassadors for the National Council Conference of 18, my second year in a row as a Twitter ambassador, social media ambassador. It's going to be really cool. There will be live streaming. There will be tweeting. And we're going to talk about it. I know April's big on the live streaming. I think that there's advantages to both aspects. Yeah, well, I think there's things that you can do with Twitter that you can't do with live streaming, and there's things that are better about live streaming. So
we're going to talk about that. And what's amazing is that like in 2014, you weren't a live tweeter, and now like you have a solid opinion 4 years later, which is awesome.
I've got solid opinions about a lot of things.
We're gonna talk about next week's show at the end, but I'm sad I'm going to be away where I don't have live streaming capabilities. Boo. Wow, China. Anyway, so Bart, you're going to weigh in about your opinion about all this other stuff and about being a Twitter ambassador and what you think all that, like social media ambassador and all that other stuff. But before we go any further, speaking of media and AAS 18, everybody say hello to Chris Maxwell.
Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Maxwell. I'm Communications Coordinator for the American Association of Suicidology. Tony already mentioned it, but you can go to suicidology.org to sign up for the conference. And I also wanted to mention too, we haven't really brought this up, but the final day of the conference, the 21st at 5:30 p.m. If you guys are sticking around through Saturday into Sunday, there's a really, really cool opportunity to join a rally to prevent suicide. We're taking as many people from the conference, from whoever's left over there, walking over to the Capitol building and having a little rally where we're going to have speakers and presenters and hopefully some legislators present as well. And we're going to really pump up the idea that suicide prevention needs funding, needs support, needs advocacy, all of that kind of stuff. So you can, I believe the website is rallytopreventsuicide.org. You can check it out there. It's part of the National Council for Suicide Prevention, and they're putting all that on. And AAS is obviously a member partner with them. So make sure to go check that out as well.
And
member partner.
I'm just so excited because last year, you know.
Is that the, wait a minute, is that the technical? Can we go back just for a second? Chris Maxwell, is that the
member partner, Bart?
Is that the technical term? Is it a member partner? A partner of
member unit?
I don't know how this happens. Okay, kids.
I'm just checking. I want to get the lingo right.
We're going to do a little bit of a history lesson. This is sort of the ghosts of social media conferencing past. So I want to talk just very, very briefly about the first time that Tony and I and Dr. Mike Sevilla hung out. This was at the Kansas Academy of Family Physicians. The Academy of Family Physicians was having their yearly conference. I was invited to speak about using social media and about having messages. Mike Sevilla, the king of family medicine and social media, was in the audience. We also had a friend of mine, Charlotte Carpenter. We also had another friend of ours, Ann Becker-Schutte. Everybody knows her, Dr. Ann Becker-Schutte on Twitter. And Tony Wood, and people started tweeting, so live tweeting. Additionally, while I was on stage, we had people live cartooning, like all the speaker presentations, which was super cool, and I still have my picture of that. And then there was this new tool called Storify, and I was a beta user, so we were going to sessions, we were tagging things. Charla was getting her degree in like library science and was like using her clinical library skills, much like Pat Anderson does. Everybody say hello to PF. And was looking up clinical articles, slides, and corroborating material to speakers. And we were creating these lovely little social media packets, having live tweets of what the speaker was saying, attributions, links to sources, pictures of what was being done, pictures of slides, and discrete packages that were all like meta tagged. And that was really the first time any of us had thought of doing that. We were very excited about that. And we started doing that in a coordinated way in most conferences. Fast forward to 2013, I go to my very first AAS conference. Thank you, Dr. Bill Schmitz. Hope you had fun at the gun range today. Dr. Bill Schmitz. And I meet up with a few other live tweeters that bring Tony Wood. And this is how SPSM is born. By August 2013, we're having SPSM chat. We're trying to teach people how to live tweet, how to curate, how to tag things, all this stuff. And now we have this army. What, Chris, Tony, do you remember what our Twitter analytics were last year? It was something ridiculous.
It was over 100 million.
It was a lot.
Wasn't it?
There's Noreen. Hi, Noreen.
Yeah, it was 100 million impressions plus, and I want to say that was largely bot free.
Explain why that's important.
And the way that
I was pitching earlier this week.
And the way that we know that it's largely bot free is we pay for analytics that break down the impressions by the top users, and a large number of our users are people that we know and love. And meaning that the largest block of impressions come from people that we know that they're actual people.
And so explain that there are people who are inflating their Twitter analytics using bots.
My goodness, that's bad. Yeah,
that's like the norm.
You can go pay money if you're kind of a jerk to get retweets on your materials so that it boosts your Twitter analytics. Obviously, those aren't legitimate impressions, as they just fall into a total black hole. So it's not like those go anywhere. It just makes the numbers look good.
So Steve Sisko says, curious, about a minute ago, how does Twitter make live tweeting a pain? Indeed, I realized Twitter can unilaterally make many things on their platform a pain. And by the way, that wasn't the case when we started. It was a lot easier to use. But is there something they do specific to live tweeting? Because that's one of our prompts, which was But things have changed, and Twitter's not nearly so much fun anymore.
I think for really high volume people, for really high volume tweeters, it's become more difficult. But for the average conference tweeter, it's really no different. It's not changed much at all. But Chris Maxwell may strongly disagree.
I would say from the very beginning, Twitter would put most of our SPSM live tweeters in Twitter jail. And we would have to ask Twitter support to get us out. Now we all get like bots. We get you don't just get put in Twitter jail. You get locked out of your account. You have to reset your password. When I'm handing off an account to multiple people and it keeps like making them authenticate that they're not a bot and resetting the password, it makes it hard to share a Twitter account so that you can pass it off to multiple people for use at a large conference. Like if you're trying to use an official account, things like that. And it just constantly thinks that people in SPSM, everyone but Bart Andrews, it thinks is a bot. Bart, opinions?
My opinion. Well, so there's several things about this that are important. One, it looks for different things that indicate bot-like behavior, changes in your account. So if you've got a lot of people aren't really active tweeters, but then they go to a conference and they start tweeting a lot, that sends a flag to the algorithm that, hey, maybe this has been hacked it's been cloned or whatever, the zombied or whatever the hell the tech kids call that kind of thing. And so it shuts it down. Twitter lets you tweet. If your account is an active account and regularly used, it'll let you tweet about 2,000 times a day. That includes replies, that includes original tweets, and it includes RTs, right? You can like anything you want. You can like all you want. It doesn't impact your stats. But you can tweet about 2,000 times a day, and you can tweet about 180 to 200 times an hour until you hit that. And so what it's doing is if you're retweeting and tweeting a lot in a session, when you start tweeting at a pace that looks like you're going to exceed 200 tweets an hour, it will put you in Twitter jail. And Twitter jail can usually last a couple hours, can last an hour to a couple hours. And that's frustrating. If you're doing all original content, it's really hard to end up in Twitter jail. If you're RTing lots of stuff. So this is something to be really aware of. If you're live tweeting a conference and you are RTing, be really careful about how much you're RTing, because that's the quickest way that you're going to end up in Twitter jail, because it's going to see that activity and think that you're a bot. Right? So those are things with Twitter. And the reason that Twitter does that is because it wants to protect people's timelines from getting junked up by bots, because bots could just completely flood you with advertisement or political spam or, Putin propaganda, whatever the case may be, and just flood your timeline with it. And so Twitter has these algorithms to help sort that out. So those are things that you have to worry about when you're live tweeting a conference.
And we're talking about at AAS 2018 is that, can we take out some of that Twitter volume and start where we were just trying to just capture what was being said, and can we largely capture that in a live stream? And then can we create other kinds of digital assets and then reuse them in different ways, so that we in fact are having a lot of impact with our digital presence, but it's not going to be captured in our Twitter timeline deliveries analytics. So that, before, like, the way that I was letting people know about our engagement was really looking at Twitter analytics and timeline deliveries and giving people like a sense of what those were. But I kind of think we're going to move away from that, because it's not just engaged in Twitter during the conference, but we're thinking that the way that we're going to use social media, we're going to be able to create a bunch of digital assets that can be engaged with during the conference and then later. And Bart's like, wait a minute, don't get rid of Twitter, right, Bart? Like, don't quit.
Well, because so let's talk. I mean, there's big difference. I mean, the cool thing about live streaming a conference is really very cool, because it can bring your audience to the conference with you. They can see what's happening. They get to experience the content firsthand. They get to see the speaker. They can often, although it's hard to see the slides at the same time, they can see some of the slides. So that you're bringing them in, and you can completely magnify your reach, which is really incredible. What you really don't have as much of with live streaming is as much interaction. Even though some of the platforms allow some interaction of some sort, you don't get a lot of engagement with live streaming. It's pretty flat. The other challenge with live streaming is that you can't highlight things, right? You can't emphasize certain points. You can't all of a sudden just magically edit this really cool clip and spit that out while you're live streaming, unless some people are advanced enough to do that. Maybe there are some folks that can do that. I don't know. I think that would be pretty hard to do. With live tweeting, you can actually engage people with the content. You can have conversations. You can make memes. You can highlight really important points that were made. And so those are things, so that the Twitter and the live tweeting of a conference really allows you to maximize engagement and be creative and have fun. The live streaming, you've just turned your whatever device you're using into a flippin' video camera, and it's flat, right? You're just a conduit. That's all you are. You've turned yourself into a giant tube. I don't like to be a giant tube. I don't know about you, Doc Foreman.
What about a medium-sized tube?
Medium-sized tubes I'm okay with. I think I'm all right with that.
So we talked
small tubes never.
You're always exactly the right size tube for me. Moving on. So we looked in that blog and we talked about some of what the essential functions of a conference social media should do. We talked about engagement of people with the content, both in the conference and then outside of the conference, engagement of people with your brand and building buzz about what's happening with your conference and with the issue, creating really great digital assets, capturing and collecting. If you have a bunch of subject matter experts in one place, interacting about a subject, sometimes really important ideas are sort of born or really catch fire, and that's like really neat to see and to capture and to share with others, and to also be able to measure that and say, what are we doing well? That's about engagement and messaging, and you can do that in a lot of ways. We also kind of have the problem that StoreFi goes down just a couple of weeks after the conference, and StoreFi has been, for not just for SPSM, but for like StoreFi going dark and turning to a for-pay service is something that news editors across the country are having problems with. StoreFi is a wonderful aggregator and curator of a host of social media assets. You can just get so much content, and then you can embed it on websites and do all sorts of other stuff. And I used to curate the healthcare social media chat, and I used to even curate by topic and then embed that in my website every week back in the day. So back in like 2012. And so, you know, not having that tool is sort of a problem. So we've been looking at tools. I think like that has been sort of the scramble this spring. So in the middle of all the other things that we do has been like the, oh shit, we've got to really figure out how everything works again. Trying to find a tool. So I was using Wakelet. Bart, you were saying other people, Bart, Chris, Tony, other people don't like Wakelet? Because I've been importing all my StoreFis to Wakelet.
There's a lot of alternatives to StoreFi. It was StoreFi in its earlier incarnations was a very popular tool for journalists to collect content and post it on their own outlets. Since then, there's an explosion of them.
Okay, so so the issue was I was looking at reviews for for what news editors would want to use. So like the people who were the professionals who were most using that, like what were they migrating to? And I was reading the reviews and they were saying Wakelet, and I was giving it a try, and it worked so similarly to StoreFi that
Wakelet's super hot, but is by far not the only alternative. Was my point. The point of my comment.
I wasn't finding anyone that was working as well. Like the other ones only seem to have part of the functionality.
I mean, you personally are not the target market for every single one of those apps.
I feel like that was supposed to be a reality check about.
It might have been.
Do you know much about them? Like I was trying to find one that had the same functionality. I looked at a pilot. When we found out, may it rest in peace and live on forever in its new incarnation, that StoreFi was going private, kind of only available in a subscription and embedded inside of another tool. It's still going to be there somewhere if you've got the dough. But the point being that I looked at a bunch of alternatives, and I don't disagree with you. It is a great tool, but there are many.
I really, really hope Travis Atkinson is taking a tally of how many times we've said tool so far tonight.
Tool.
No, I'm waiting for someone to meme the whole tube bit.
Utility.
Mm-hmm. Steve Sisko, by the way, wanted a big shout out to Steve Sisko, who's talking about other problems with Twitter, like people having really large followings and then you piss them off and they all tattle on Twitter and you get put in Twitter jail.
And Steve's going to be actually one of the 18 ambassadors as well, and I'm really excited to work with Steve. He has a lot of experience with this sort of thing. Steve, glad to see you on the show tonight. Super excited, and so thank you for sharing your wisdom as well, sir. Much appreciated.
So Steve Sisko is also the dangers of tweeting at conferences. Presenters should have the right to ask people not to live tweet and shouldn't have to explain their reasons. I actually don't know that I agree with that. I think that there are many civil places where that seems like the social norm, but I'm going to tell you, like, you know, it's going to be one of those deals where if you're in a public place, you should really think about why you would be asking that. There are good reasons for that, but I don't know that I would get in that habit.
I think this is a great time to mention this study that Pew Research released this week that suggests, well, not suggests, it states that about 30% of American adults are online constantly. They describe it as almost constantly. And then the following 43% of them are on several times a day. So if you decide that if you think that that's a thing and that you can lock down a room and prevent people from posting content and having an online discussion about whatever it is you're presenting to the public, I think that you're fighting a very difficult trend. It's not that it's not possible under any circumstances. It's just it's very difficult to arrange. So it would never be advice that I would give you if you asked me, like, what's the best way for me to have this happen? I would never say you should structure your content.
It's like saying you should have the right to tell journalists something's off the record and the journalists should respect that. Well, maybe, but there are a lot of reasons why journalists might not do that, or why they might stop and cover your event without your permission.
I think the rights of a free press are one thing. But I think the expectations of a presenter that you're going to have a room of people that are just going to not make any online engagement of what you do just because you want them to is probably not a reasonable expectation when we're looking at 70+% of American adults are online constantly.
Noreen says, Doc Foreman, if you're in a public place, why would you be asking people not to live tweet? And I would even say,
good question, Noreen.
And she's like, question mark. And I would say, and by the way, live stream, because like now I can just video you, like, and I have been in rooms where I've chosen not to tweet or stream some things that people were doing, even though I was very stunned and did capture it. Things that I thought, oh my goodness, maybe the public should know about this. And then I sort of thought about the implications for a lot of people in the room. And I just sort of made an editorial decision based on my goals and what I think are good ethics or fair play. But everyone sees that differently. If you are in a public place, you should not behave as if you have an expectation to control the media. You really don't. You should be prepared for media. But there are some reasons why you might not. Noreen, the example that Steve Sisko is tweeting out has to do with Gamergate. We talked about that some on SPSM, where women were at gaming conferences presenting issues of being harassed digitally, and then they were speaking about it. And while they were speaking about it, they were getting doxxed and harassed and victimized. And so the reason might be to actually protect the people, you know, that you might say this is sensitive and people could be harmed if we do that. So we might ask you not to, but you still might not be able to expect that. Tony, Chris, Bart, we've lost Bart.
Yeah, Bart had something he had to run and do. I think that the point of my comment is not to be confrontational and tell you people who present content that's very sensitive what you should do and what you shouldn't do. I am just suggesting that if 70+% of adults are online constantly, it's a very difficult thing to ask and very unlikely that you're actually going to achieve that. Mm-hmm. So you should plan your sessions a different way, or at least consider it. Chris, what do you mean?
There have been a couple of instances. I know when we were in Denver, there were a couple of sessions where some earlier than released research was being presented. And the presenter asked us to not tweet what you want in terms of the general session, but for the next 5 minutes where I cover some of these early results that mean very little, I'm pulling out pieces that could potentially mean things. I don't want people to read into the research from a 240 character tweet. So if they're not here, you can't adequately cover what I'm about to present in that format. So just please, and even then, it's a request, and he fully understood that that's not entirely possible. So.
And I would like to point out, there are some good and legitimate reasons to request that. I just think you've got to be prepared for people to not honor that request. And
so I think there's a couple of different things going on here. I think one, if you're presenting the information in a public forum and the conference is a public event, tough shit. It's a public event and you need to deal with it. I think there's a different. I do think that if someone asks you not to, and there isn't a conference policy, I do think it's common courtesy. I don't think there's any. I think one of the general rules we all agree to in suicide prevention and social media is don't be a dick, right? I mean, there's absolutely no reason if someone makes this request, there's absolutely no reason not to be respectful, even if they are being clearly problematic.
Right, and I would like to, for the record, say I do.
Can I finish?
No.
Can I finish?
No.
Can I finish?
No.
May I finish?
No.
May I finish?
No.
Don't make me bring Admiral Stockdale in on this, because I will bring Admiral Stockdale in if I have to, and you will not be happy. So I think most conferences are moving to the point where when you're presenting, you're actually signing an agreement that says that you can be videotaped, you can be broadcast, and basically what you're presenting here is a public domain type stuff, right? So in the event that you're at a conference where there is protected information and there's a conference policy, and this is kind of within a small group, I totally get that. I mean, if you're going to share things in a small tight group, but that should not be the presenter's issue to deal with. That really should be the conference, and there should be rules, and I mean, if you're going to
that's exactly not my point. That's the opposite of my point. The point that I'm trying to make is that if you as a presenter, if you're out there watching SPSM, God bless you, spending your Sunday night with us. The point of my comment is to warn everybody that this is a real thing, and that no matter what you say in front of it or what the policy says, you can't stop this from happening. So you need to plan accordingly that should this happen, that you know that you're cool. Like whatever it is you're saying and doing in public is public, and you can't really stop it.
Yeah, advice to
in the end,
is different than advice to live tweeters. Anyway, go ahead, Bart.
So, but I think to Tony's point, if you're presenting in a group of folks and you think that isn't going to go somewhere on social media because you've asked people not to, there are going to be people who respect that, and there are going to be people who don't respect that. So I think in this day and you're presenting to a group of folks in a conference setting, you can hope and pray that people aren't going to share this information, but that information is going to go somewhere. So I think that I've heard, Jonathan Singer, a great SPSMer, has talked about how, well, there's certain times I'm presenting data and the data may be preliminary. And I'm sorry, I don't get that. If it's preliminary data, then you present it as preliminary data, and that's the deal. So I think there's an awful lot of things around this that are just people are a little tight about it. I know at National Council, I've been live tweeting at National Council and at AAS for years now, and I've never had anybody say, don't tweet this. I've never had you have, I haven't. I'll also say there are times when I won't tweet stuff, right? There are certain times when people are telling certain things about their life story, their lived experience, and I'll make very specific decisions not to live tweet that part, even though the person may be fine with that. There's some of these things that I'm like, I'm not going to put that out there. If they want to put it out there on their own, they certainly can. But I make lots of decisions about what I'm going to tweet and what I'm not going to tweet. And I think one of my general rules is that when I'm tweeting a conference, I really do want it to be the best possible experience for the presenter and my participants. I'm not like to create difficulties or put them in a bad light ever. It's never my goal. It's always really to share information, make it a positive experience, and get people excited about stuff. There's lots of things that I could say and tweet that could be snarky or sarcastic or critical, and I don't do that because that's just not my role. That's not what I'm trying to do.
Next week is going to be so fun for you.
Well, oh yeah. Well.
So to Steve Cisco's point, for live streaming, live tweeting, whatever media that you're creating, and some media you might do some live streaming and do sizzle reels later. The goal is don't be a dick. If you're a presenter, be aware that your audience, like, you can't like present something in public and then, well, I guess you can throw a tantrum. It's just you need to behave as if there's a reporter in the front row. Similarly, the advice to our people, especially people around the social media team, and just if you're an SPSM, or like, our cultural value is don't be a dick and think about the mission and what you're about, and keep your content in line with that. But those are, like, to the presenter and to the content producer, those are different pieces of advice, right? And we hope that in the middle lies civil discourse, right? Boy, that don't be a dick business took up more time than sort of the what's coming next. So I want to talk a little bit about live streaming, because, you know, we're really going to be moving to Twitch. We're going to be moving not just to content creation, but also to creating, like, broadcast network, basically, and to being able to take digital assets that we live stream and turn those into sizzle reels, or like things that people can chat about or engage with after the conference in various ways. Chris, can you talk a little bit more about the things that you think are going to be important in terms of live streaming and video content creation? Because I think, like, that's the new thing, which is there's going to, everybody with a phone is a you know, a newscast.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this a lot when we're talking about how the format for this year is going to work. And I think and we've also been talking since the conference, since we were at the conference last year, how do we engage our members more just in general? And we have at AAS, at this conference, we have such a unique opportunity to focus on all of our members, their work, their lived experience, their entire concept of suicide prevention and suicide intervention. So it runs the gamut of what we're doing as a group and as an organization at this conference. So the ways that we can really take advantage of that are doing live streaming. Sure, maybe a couple of the sessions might be really interesting, especially the TED style sessions, which are shorter. They're going to be more engaging. They're going to be easier to capture and put on Facebook or Instagram or wherever you end up putting stuff. And people are going to watch those because they're a little bit shorter. It might be less important to stream the full sessions, the full hour-long sessions or breakout sessions or things like that. That might be where the live tweeting aspect comes into play and is more appropriate. One of the things we were talking about in the pre-show is, you know, and we'll try to coordinate this with the social media team too. But if you have a chance to run up to a presenter or a researcher that you're familiar with, or a lived experience advocate, or a loss survivor who has given a session, or that you know, run up to them, ask them like 3 questions, and live stream it. Live stream it to Facebook, live stream it to Twitter, wherever you're going to do it. But that kind of content, that behind the scenes kind of content, is really, really engaging. It's really interesting, and it'll provide the outside audience and the internal audience a different perspective than what they've seen when that person was on stage. So they're like April was talking about, in terms of focusing on our mission, what we really need to be focusing on is the work of our members and our members themselves. So how do we combine those things? I think this is a good strategy.
And, you know, Carl Dunn is telling us Carl is like just always a center part of the conference social media experience for all of us, and he's not going to be there. He's like, please live stream, because there are things I'm going to want to see. So I like, in terms of what is live streamed or what is not live streamed, you know, I think that the social media team, historically, we've done our best. It is exhausting, and even with so many people participating, we have a few people who are really helping. We're helping us sort of boost numbers and do things in a coordinated way. And this year, those folks are going to be doing, I think, more help with Chris with live streaming, curation, and digital capture, because that's stuff that other people won't be doing. I think, right, Chris?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But if there are things that you are interested in, the thing that we have found is that you have to go to what you're passionate about. You have to go to what you're interested in. You have to pick things that grab your attention and who you think your audience's attention is. Because if you're covering something that's boring, you're bored. And it shows, right, Bart? Like, I'm seeing you nod.
I'm at the point in my life where if I don't have to sit through boring conference content, I ain't gonna do it. I've really, I mean, I like good presentations. I love learning new things, and time's too valuable to me. And so people need to bring their A game when they're showing up at a conference and presenting and make it entertaining. And sometimes tweeting can help with that. If you're good live tweeting, you can make some stuff that isn't particularly spectacular look pretty good. Actually, you can put some lipstick on that pig if you know what you're doing. So yeah, I've turned some rather dull presentations into flipping amazing Twitter material. But it was hard work and underappreciated, I'll also say. And the person wasn't even on Twitter, so they don't know how amazing I made them look, even though their presentation sucked.
If you're a presenter, don't suck so bad. Like, this is your moment to have a few tweetable quotes, a couple of good slides. Be willing. No, seriously, have a few good sound bites. Like, for presenters going to AAS 18, like, think about beyond what you're going to do in that minute at your podium. Like, part of your presentation now is how can you make things that can catch fire, right? If Bart is bored, you should stop. Sort of.
Do something. Start a fight. Push somebody in the front row. Get some action going. I don't care what it takes, but I do think that if the world would just do a better job of entertaining me, we'd all be a lot happier, wouldn't we?
So I think what we're all saying is consider your audience.
Yeah,
I feel obligated to say maybe not start fights at the conference.
You're saying that the conference social media person and the board member should not encourage? Do you think that's
what?
That's probably
metaphorically. It was metaphorically.
Travis Atkinson.
Don't oppress my speech.
Is it hard to be mentally present at a conference when taking on large social media responsibilities? Travis, the answer is yes and no. In some ways, when you are doing social media, you are hyper present, and you can't tune out. You can't just sit through the hour and make it to the next thing, like with a little bit of chat in the hallways, or you can't just duck out. So like if you get bored, it's easier. Like, but if you just suddenly this is boring, you don't want to stop live tweeting, or you can't stop live streaming. So you're very, very present. The other piece is, honestly, Travis, it's super exhausting. So I now, I've fallen asleep mid stretching on the floor. There were pictures of my ass.
That was not stretching. That was.
I just face planted into the.
That was. I mean, a coma stretch. I guess people in comas really are just doing a long stretch. I guess that's something we just didn't realize, SPSM, that really coma is Latin for a really long stretch.
Yes.
So what I'm going to tell you is it's exhausting. So one of the things that we found is people who are doing social media conferences, and I recommend this if you're on a team, that you go do some things and that you will literally be one big nerve. Like, you need to go to a quiet place, to stop making content, hang out with just a couple of people, because you'll have been engaged on a very big level and you have to bring it in. And I think just having enough people has been to do everything that needs doing. And I always give honestly, after AAS, and I don't do this after other conferences, I usually just take a day before I travel home, quietly finish a few things up, sleep in before I hit the plane, because I almost worry about my ability to make it home. I mean, I face planted in the carpet last year. Chris,
you did.
What? I did. I mean, I was so exhausted.
Are we still doing phrasing?
What?
Are we still doing phrasing?
What do you mean?
Yep.
Okay.
What do you mean phrasing?
What are we phrasing? What's going on? What did I miss?
I got a mind blower for you guys for the transition from this topic.
What?
This week, another study this week, except this journal is the journal Molecular Psychiatry.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. The good people at the University of Hamburg Eppendorf have they've published a study, a longitudinal study, that video games represent no significant behavioral change. Violent video games represent no significant increase in in several aggression measures when studied across several months. So video game violence is just yet another nail in the coffin.
President Trump would very much like to be excluded from that narrative, Tony. Everybody knows video games cause violence.
Right.
Where have you been?
Right.
Where have you been? Speech is violence, Tony. If the intersectionists have taught us anything, speech is violence, Tony. And don't you forget it. God damn it.
But silence is violence also.
Violence
is speech.
So I'm going to encourage
this has gotten confusing.
in MA to tweet their fingers out. We hear from enough peeps to say thank you. Great way to inform folks who can't travel. If you can't travel to AAS, you can still, Chris, how can people look at the conference schedule? Maybe you could request someone attend and live stream something that you're interested in at the time you're interested in it, Chris?
I was literally tweeting that at Carl as you said that. So if you go to suicidology.org and you go to the conference page, you can download the registration brochure. It's going to have the featured key presentations right now. We don't have the full breakout schedules online yet, but as soon as those are put up there, take a look at those and just tweet at the social media team, and we'll see what we can do. If we have enough people who are really interested in a particular session, there's no reason we can't get somebody that's really good at multitasking in there, both live streaming and tweeting at the same time. We'll figure it out, but it never hurts to ask.
And sometimes, I mean, we really have said, let me show you how to use Periscope. And if you'll just tag it and let me show you which, oh, here's how you tag AAS 18 and here's how you tag the room number. We're going to, just like every year, come up with a little system to help people double tag so we can curate. Or here's, we've been showing people how to do stuff that turns into YouTube's, just like this turns into a YouTube when we're done. So if you can't make this session, maybe you can arrange for someone to live stream it and send you the digital assets. That being said, Chris, what are the cool things that we could do if we create just if people organically show up to AAS and create a ton of video content?
Oh, I mean, the amount of promotional material or the recap and the sizzle reel material would be through the roof. We would be able to put together so many different fun clips of individual sessions, of individual presenters, of people going through and talking and chatting and doing whatever we want. We could, I mean, really the possibilities are pretty endless when it comes to what you can create if there's enough raw content. We'll make something great out of it for sure.
And probably one of the things we talk about social media evolving and just being able to live tweet, and we were teaching everybody kind of attribute things and try to paraphrase and like don't let people know when it's your opinion versus saying what the speaker said or things like that. Those were really important skills. But now we're moving into, do you know how to live stream? Can you make sure it gets captured in like a YouTube or a link? And then like probably like learning a little bit of video editing, like after the fact, just like Storify, like probably, Chris, you might explain to people this sizzle reel thing you've got going on is an actual system that people can learn. Because you do this right after the show. You make a sizzle reel right after SPSM every night fairly smoothly.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that I do during the show, and this can translate pretty well, I think, but one of the things I do is keep track of some timestamps of where people say certain things that might be quotable that can then be cut out and then thrown into the sizzle reel. What I'm thinking in this context that might be interesting, if we pull out, so if somebody's live streaming a session, one of the TED style talks, for instance, and we take a look at some of the more commonly tweeted quotes that are happening in the live stream or even in the live tweeting, we could easily go back and just pull out some of those things and use those quotable moments, bam, 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 and have like a really, really cool 2 to 3 minute clip.
So like having people, like you have a way that you sort of note quotable moments, like while we're doing the thing live, so that you can go back and do it, like put together something quickly, teaching a strategy to people. So part of the social media team might be just streaming something and marking when you think like, you know, Chris, there were 4 moments you might want to look at later, and giving that to people for use down the road. Because AAS put together, you know, could contribute to like a Twitch stream or could broadcast sizzle reels of the conference. Tony, Bart, Chris, there's a question I want you guys to respond to from Travis Atkinson that I think, so this is the one I get all of the time. What about
it's one of my deep favorites, by the way.
Yeah, actually it is. Tony, I said like Tony's like Tony's gonna like start. What about conferences being concerned about too much of their content being shared? At what point does attendance become obsolete when nearly all sessions are available for viewing online?
As we have grown the social media presence of AAS. Now this is N of 1, okay, N of 1. So you know, don't take this the wrong way. Our conference attendance has grown dramatically, in fact. So the more you reach more people, seems to engage more people in the content and makes them more interested regionally in your conference. Now, is it possible that you might shrink your conference? I suppose, but I don't have any evidence of that happening anywhere that I have contact with.
Chris, Bart?
So I think that this is, you hear this particularly from conference organizers, right? And Travis, I'm not calling you out at all. You also hear this from old people.
Yeah.
So I did, and Travis isn't old. He's a young, vibrant, productive member of society with many years in front of him. But people who are not tech savvy, who don't understand media and communication, and who also tend to be, this is also, I'm just going to say this. I say this all the time. Mental health professionals in particular tend to be incredibly conservative in terms of change, and frightened of change and frightened of new things. We are not just late adopters, we're like delayed, marginally impaired, frightened adopters. And so this whole thing is so new that they come up, there's this fear, there's this tremendous fear about all this new stuff. So anything that sounds rational, that can be a rational excuse, instead of dealing with the fear and the newness and the insecurity, people latch onto things to try to explain their fear in other ways, like, oh my God, if we live stream this conference, nobody's going to come to this conference, right? If you tweet this all out, nobody's going to come to this conference. That's all complete and utter crap. People are not going to not go to a conference because they can get tweets about the conference, or they can watch it live stream. Because in fact, what's incredibly attractive about the conference is actually being there, right? And being present and being in the space and being able to choose what you want to see and interacting with people. It's the environment itself that draws people. Good social media and good coverage of a conference will increase your attendance, not decrease it, right? What it does do is let people who can't be there, who are interested, learn more, gain more. It's advertisement. Right? It really is really good advertisement. You're not giving the cow away for free. And I can't imagine there's anybody ever is like, oh, I'm not gonna go to the conference this year because I can just watch it live streamed. I don't believe that. How many people here, raise your hand if you've ever joined into an all-day meeting via Skype or by a teleconference phone call? It's freaking miserable. It's miserable for everybody. Can I just say, if I could get a law passed, that law would be that you can't friggin' join in for the all-day event from off-site. You know you can't. You just stay where you are. We'll stay where we are, and everybody's happy. Yay, great. So I'm just putting that out there. If you're listening, please just stop. But this does, Travis, this does come up an awful lot. And I think it's just one of those, it's the myth, like video games lead to violent behavior, impact people in negative ways. The science just don't support it.
So I would also say that with SPSM, like, you guys can watch us all the time, interact with us all the time. Like, there's no charge, whatever. But when people show up to AAS, everybody goes to the SPSM dinner. Like, that's not even like a formal event. Like, just everyone goes and everyone hangs out. A lot of a conference is about relationships. And so we're all there because we care about something and you know, shared passion about an issue. and being there is cooler. Tony?
What was I gonna say?
You've got to have something to say, Tony.
You've got the camera.
I don't know, man. I think that this particular approach has gotten a little old because of all the data that supports doing it. I think that if you have a conference or if you have a large meeting or even a small meeting that does not have any sort of marketing, PR, or social media strategy, maybe you should consider it.
Travis just complimented us saying the Twitter game y'all brought to AAS National Council and Crisis Center conferences is out of this world. It's so progressive and engaging. You make the other conferences I tend, not named, to look savage and archaic. I will say we have a lot of SPSMers who are on social media teams at all of those things. And I am, I want to do a big shout out to Hickson, the healthcare social media crowd, who very early days and before I was involved so heavily with suicide prevention, like helped me understand all this stuff. So this is like a lot of people paying it forward. And so SPSMers are definitely a pay it forward group. So that's awesome, Travis. Thank you. Carl Dunn, I want to talk about this actually. Is it okay if we talk about your 6 a.m. trips to Starbucks and your workouts at the gym, Bart?
A little bit late now.
Sure.
Carl Dunn says, I'll miss you, Bart. You have to Periscope your 6 a.m. visits to Starbucks so I can feel like I'm with you. Like, to explain what that's about.
Well, which time? I mean, so I tend to wreak a lot of havoc early in the morning. When I'm at conferences, I get up really early because I've got to work out before the event starts. So I get up really early, and I really want Starbucks bright and early in the morning. I'd like a triple or a quad espresso to start my day, to make sure that I'm properly motivated to deal with life as it comes at me. And so one of the things that I'll do when I'm at a conference is I'll kind of live tweet my Starbucks experience or lack of my Starbucks experience, depending on the Starbucks situation. Sometimes the hotel Starbucks doesn't open till 8 a.m., which really suggests that hotel might be in a line with some sort of socialist scheme to destroy America. And don't belittle me on that. That's a total socialist thing right there. Because in a capitalistic democratic society, if I want a triple espresso, I should be able to get it at 6 o'clock in the morning if I have the money to pay for it. Right? That's what I'm saying. So I do lots of fun things when I get up it's America. That's right. So I love scoping up the local coffee shops, and I'm really happy when you get a Starbucks that's open at 5:30 or 6, so I can get down there, do some pre-tweeting. And get my drink on before the day starts.
Marshall said the conference experience is all about he's quoting me. It's all about relationships. Last year being my first experience, Marshman, not to be sappy, but that made my year last year, and this year's has legit kept me going. Like,
wait, did you just quote Marshall quoting you?
I didn't realize I got through.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, let me find an opportunity to quote somebody quoting me. Well, Marshall just quoted me, so I'll go ahead and re-quote myself via Marshall, because we just can't get enough Doc Foreman quotes on the show, can we, everybody?
Now you know Twitter land how to get on. If you really want to get highlighted, you can just be effusive about Dr. Foreman.
It doesn't hurt. Oh, look, who's going to go on a DC run with me and Chris Maxwell? Chris keeps I will say, Chris, I legit watch Bart and Chris's working out while laying in bed on the weekends.
Who said that? Is it Travis?
That's not actually what that came out a little awkward. And that's not actually what happens.
You guys work out and I lay around. And I watch. That's exactly what happens. Maybe I'm dressed.
Oh my goodness! It's almost time for final thoughts.
Yeah, final thoughts, everybody. Okay.
Explain about some of the great social media engagement that's not just about live streaming, but that people legit really connect seriously about the running and the working out and the explain about some of that.
Yeah, no, I mean it's incredible the amount of connection. I mean, you guys all hit on this in certain ways, but you just do miss out so much. And I don't mean to rub this in the faces of the people who can't be there, but to Travis's original point, you do just sometimes miss a lot if you're not there. And there's so many great ways to connect on an ongoing basis where you form relationships via Twitter, and then you get their contact information, you form collaborations later on. So there's the growth potential of talking and using social media at conferences is huge. There's even been, I've had a couple of instances where live tweeting or live streaming have resulted in someone not at the conference then reaching out and asking for a collaboration. So there's a wide breadth of possibilities when using multiple platforms and making sure that the content is being pushed out.
Isn't that how you like hanging out with you at the conference? Isn't that how you end up like being part of the unholy foursome?
Yeah. We don't talk. I'm not gonna talk about the initiation program process. What did you guys call it when you were hitting me?
You mean what were we discussing? Tattoos and branding? I don't remember.
Yeah.
That was earlier this week. Bert's like, nah. Steve Sisko, want to read Steve Sisko's tweet. Any company or person.
A quote of you?
Yes. Any company or person that presents an IP at a closed conference. I couldn't agree more. Covering a future launch of some important widget who, in all caps, who does not take steps to prevent unauthorized release of its information. So getting people to commit to not releasing it is not doing it right. At AAS, we're not having things where people are signing NDAs. Like that's not what's going on. And so that's probably an important distinction. Travis Atkinson's final thoughts. I have an invoice for 1 hour of my life. Let me know who I should send it to. That is like the best.
Foreman, PhD.
Tony Wood.
So we're getting into final thoughts. I know what mine are going to be, but I'm going to go ahead and start with Tony. I'm going to go backwards from my usual order. I'm usually just clicking through. Tony,
tweet
final
more,
thoughts.
tweet often.
Until Twitter stops you, and then what?
Throw your phone.
Then your time is your own.
And all the 20-year-olds say Insta-G just by the by.
Oh,
Bart,
don't start with that Instagram.
I mean, Bart, Chris.
Insta-G your little hearts out.
Mm-hmm.
No, maintain focus, tweet quotable items, tweet. I saw a tweet in here earlier that really hit on it too. Make sure you're sharing content that that touches you personally and that resonates with you, because there's a good chance that if it resonates with you, it resonates with a lot of other people. You don't have to catch everything, just the major points, just the things that you think are really cool. Make pictures, make memes, film as much as you possibly can, but do what you can and just do it well.
Like maybe come learn about Twitch and come learn how to do sizzle reels and video content. Like we just have, like Chris, I hope is gonna teach me so I'm not so bad anymore. Bart Andrews.
So final thought for me, one of the things I learned, it was actually in Vegas at a NatCon conference. I get really hung up on RTs and how much traction things are getting. And I learned at a conference a few years back that mental health professionals in particular don't RT a whole lot, but they are paying attention, they're lurking. And so just because your tweet doesn't get a whole lot of, from a conference doesn't get a lot of retweets, or maybe it's not getting a lot of likes, doesn't mean that people aren't paying attention. They're lurking, they're watching. So keep that in mind. You're having often a much bigger impact. And I think Tony hit on this. We put a lot of stake in RTs, and I'm not really sure how good of a metric that is anymore. I think there's some value in it, but I think it's blown out of proportion. And know that the work that you're doing and the things that you're creating online, people are paying attention. They're lurking, they're watching, and that's really cool. So.
And in no way did I mean to belittle Twitter impressions. It's just that they have a meaning and a place and a time. They're just not the end of everything. It's not. They don't mean everything.
I like a universe where our opinions about Twitter impressions are that powerful.
Well, the problem is that people have become. It's just a tool. People have begun reporting their Twitter impressions, and they're dubious. You know, you look at their actual stats, and basically they've paid people, they've paid services to make their stats look good. Well, that's not a great idea. That's not going to get you anything.
There's a big.
You should know on a side. SPSM does report our stats every week, and occasionally there are ones where we've had a disruption in service. But we have a method that we use. We don't have those things, and we try to represent those like sort of an accurate measurement. I just don't think Twitter engagement's going to be so important as people's engagement with video content after the fact. Sharing little nuggets, sizzle reels, memes, things like that, or links to a presentation or links to slides. I think it's going to be sharing. It's going to be like who watches what and who passes on what. I think that's going to be harder to capture. That's why we're looking at Twitch analytics, because that will capture that better, I think, right? Bart, you were going to say?
So it's another story, but there's a huge shakeup in Twitter about all of these big accounts who are tweet stealers and have these RT groups, right, to inflate their numbers. And Twitter, and Twitter shut them down. Which is, there's some major tweet thieves. And I was at a conference one time doing these amazing tweets on this really big name. Dude stole my tweet. Literally, he took one of my live tweets and just put it in his own tweet. Didn't say anything about it. And I was like, what a. But those folks are getting shut down. If you're a tweet stealer or you belong to an RT group, Twitter's coming for you because it's cheating.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do tweeting, not cheating, streaming, not steaming. I don't know. I don't even know what I say. My final thought as we're closing out. This year, there's going to be some new skills. A lot of those skills are going to be around video, and they're going to be around creating video channels that persist beyond the minute or the moment of the presentation. I think that is where we have the most potential for doing good with our content. And so those skills are a little bit more complex, and they're scary to me, but also, I mean, this was all scary when all this started it. So like, if you were going to pick one thing to do, we've got a whole lot of people who can do a whole lot of what we were doing. But if you have the technological capability at all to stream things and to do any kind of video content management, whether it's editing or whatever, I think Max will really need your help this year. Is that fair, Chris?
Take all of the videos, live stream everything you possibly can.
Yeah. Because
stick cameras in people's faces, just as close as you can get them.
Especially in the bathrooms.
I was about to say everywhere but the bathrooms. So
no.
Everyone, it's been another week. We're so excited. Let me tell you a little bit about next week before we go. I will be inaccessible next Sunday, most likely, if I can figure out a way to be here. But I kind of think that it will be prohibited, right? Because China doesn't allow Twitter, right? I think I'm kind of like screwed.
Or YouTube.
It does not allow YouTube?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what, Bert. Do you know what China does?
We want you to come back from China, so just stay cool. Just don't tweet or video anything. Don't wear your Winnie the Pooh shirt, because that would be really bad.
No, do not.
Oh Lord.
Bart,
Chris, tell everybody really quick.
But socialism is cool, everybody. Keep that in mind.
No, it's really cool because it's going to be suicide prevention in China, and so I can't wait to tell you all about that. I want to talk to them about some neat things. But like Bart, Chris, can you guys tell about, like, next week is going to be particularly fun, and also we have a controversial graphic which I'm excited about. Bart, Chris, what are we doing next week?
It's only controversy that I like kind of got squirmy around it. But as far as what we've talked about, the idea is that we want you all, and you can do this over the next week or so, tweet at us using the SPSM hashtag and tell us what bugs you about suicide prevention. What pisses you off about the industry? What things do you get frustrated with? Anything and everything is free game, and then we're going to take a few of those that resonate with us and kind of go over some of the issues with a lot of these things that are problematic. Why aren't we lowering numbers of suicides? You know, that's a pretty big one that kind of frustrates me. And why are we focusing so much on that number and not necessarily the attempts? So there are a lot of different ways that we can take some of these things that bug us and frustrate us and turn them around and start looking at possible solutions. I think that's kind of what I'm hoping Bart can do with some expert bitching.
It's kind of a Peter Griffin. You know what grinds my gears? SPSM is what we have going on there. I will say that there's not going to be any ad hominem conversations. We're really interested in terms of philosophy or approaches. We're not going to tolerate people ragging on agencies or specific people because that's just ridiculous. But there are lots of things that I got lots to say about safe messaging, which is something that I have very strong opinions about.
No sacred cow will be spared, right, Bart?
They're the only sacred cows that will be left will be grilled and eaten. That didn't go.
What about tube steak? I'm very unclear.
Sacred cow.
Good night, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
It didn't land right.
Everyone, come see Bart, and also
off the grill.
Did we say that you, the audience, will be submitting your prompts? So Chris is going to be moderating. Bart Andrews is not going to prep ahead of time. You get to grind Bart's gears yourself.
That's.
Isn't that great?
Everyone, see you next week. I can't wait to see what happens. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful week. Looking forward to AS. Take care.
Oh, a great name for a steak place would be the Sacred Cow, right? Wouldn't that be great?
That's pretty good.